Many new gacha games are hitting our devices this year in 2025, but one in particular has been on my radar for quite some time. Its title, Black Beacon. This is a game where the story, in my opinion, exceeds that of most of the other gacha game stories we have experienced, and where the script and storytelling is told in such a unique and interesting way, where I literally almost threw my phone across my room because of how attached I got to the characters that you play with and experience the story with in this game. I was lucky enough to be invited to try out the global beta test, and this game not only met my hype and expectations, it very easily exceeded them. Welcome, my fellow flames of Amethyst, to my full review of Black Beacon. If you enjoy this video, guys, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below and let me know if this video has piqued your interest about Black Beacon and if the details within this review is getting you excited to play Black Beacon later on this year in 2025. Without further ado, guys, let's get into the review. The story of Black Beacon is unlike any other I have played. Inspired by classic fantasy literature and mythology, this epic tale invites players to join a special society as members of the MINGZHOU, foretold in ancient texts. Together with allies, players confront otherworldly phenomena and uncover hidden truths. The story delivers immense immersion, allowing players to fully enjoy the narrative-driven experience Black Beacon has to offer. The player in this game takes on the role of the Seer, entrusted with the key to the library of Babel by a strange figure known as Cosmos. You encounter the librarians of the MINGZHOU who reside in the tower and witness the library's catastrophic future. You must then travel back in time with allies from the MINGZHOU to discover why such a future has been set into motion and prevent this future from coming to pass. It is filled with emotion, it is filled with twists and turns. You are introduced to unique and different roles and different characters within the story of Black Beacon, and it is a story that is going to get you hooked, it's going to get you attached to these characters, and it's going to have you literally going berserk when certain events come to pass while playing through the events of the story in Black Beacon, and I cannot wait to see all of you experience this for yourselves and see what you all think. One thing I will say about the story is the voice acting for the characters is very impressive and very immersive, and I am very happy that they've got such talented voice actors to act with these characters within the story of Black Beacon. Some of the voice acting is the best I've heard in most gacha games I've played. They do a great job portraying the emotions the characters are feeling. Each voice is very unique and the voice acting sounds believable and immersive. One character in particular does sound monotone a lot of the time, but due to the lore of this character, they explain why they sound and act this way, and why they sound so monotone, and why they sound so lifeless within the story. They explain it. It actually is it's a very good thing that they do explain why certain characters' voices are a lot more monotone and a little bit more lifeless and a little bit more sort of lacking in the sense of portraying emotion, unlike other gacha games where the voice acting sounds monotone and lifeless, but they don't actually, there's no particular reason why that is. They literally just sound like they do not want to be here. But in this game, they actually explain why some of the characters are the way they are. For instance, there is a character called Zero. They are very monotone and they are very lifeless, but they explain later on why they act like that and why their character is that way in the game, which is something that I'm very happy about, rather than me playing the game, hearing this character talk in a certain way and go, why does this voice actor sound like they just don't want to be here, and why it just sounds lazy and the voice direction was terrible? No, they actually explain why the character's like this, and it makes a lot of sense, which is something that I'm very happy about. Speaking of characters, the character designs are very impressive. I can see how much time they have put into the creation of these characters. For instance, Nana, who is one of the main cast of characters you'll meet in the story, is one of the most unique looking characters I've seen in a gacha for a decent while. And I'm also a big fan that they have included elements of diversity within the character roster of this game. Erishan is another character whose design I am a fan of, especially because of her weapon being a scythe, which those who don't know Scythes are one of my favourite weapon types ever. I love scythes. We haven't seen enough of them in these gacha games, and I'm glad that characters in this game are going to be having different kinds of weapon types within the game that we haven't seen before. Speaking of weapon types, there is an abundance of unique selections of weapon types in this game, from scythes to suitcases to a big stone tablet thing to the literal dragon scroll to a warhammer to a musical instrument to finally a fucking umbrella, which characters are going to be wielding fighting enemies, and I cannot wait for it. The list does go on. These aren't the only weapon types. There are a hell of a lot more, like dual blades, great swords, gauntlets, etc. But the fact there are this many weapon types is crazy, and such unique weapon types. Something that I think adds to the game, something that I think gives it a little bit more charm to these characters as well. You also have 5-star variants of these weapons that have unique looks and abilities, and these 5-star weapons will tell you the best character to equip it to, basically the best in slot character for this weapon and where they go. I really do think this is one of the most interesting, fun and goofy weapon roster in Gacha, and it's something that I'm definitely here for, and something that I think you guys are going to really appreciate in this game. The next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the mechanic of the elemental system that Black Beacon has. So each individual character has their own elemental power. It goes from fire to water to thunder to light to dark, and each individual element has their own secret ability that is going to activate when you're mid-combat. For instance, I'm on Florence right now, who is a 5-star dot AoE fire damage dealer, and what she's going to do is each attack she deals to the enemy is going to eventually apply burn, but since she is a DOT AoE fire damage dealer, her fire damage is going to spread to all surrounding enemies, not just that singular target that you're attacking. But if you come over to someone like Erashan, she is of the dark type. Now, the dark type is probably, arguably, in my opinion, the most complicated type to master within the game. I'm going to explain how the dark types work. Stay with me, it is complicated, but I've tested it out. It's exactly how it works. So, when you deal damage with a dark type character, eventually you are going to plunge the enemy into the dark erosion state. What the dark erosion state is going to do is every attack you deal is going to receive a lot more dark damage when compared to if they were not in the dark erosion state. Also, what's going to happen is while the enemy is within the dark erosion state, the more damage the enemy deals to you as the dark type character, what that's going to do is the more damage you have taken while the enemy has been within the dark erosion state, when the dark erosion state ends, based on the damage you have taken, it's going to then mirror and explode on the enemy. So it's a counter ability as well as a damage over time ability as well. So let me quickly break that down. When you're using a dark character, you will put them into this state. You will deal more dark type damage to the enemy while they're in this state. Meanwhile, if they're attacking you, when the state ends, when the dark erosion state ends, based on how much damage you yourself has taken, that's going to basically be mirrored and all at once explode upon the enemy. The next thing we're going to discuss, other than the elements, is the combat roles. Now, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. The different combat roles reside of 3 different classes. Your destruction characters, which are your main damage dealers. Your balance characters, which is a support class of assisting attack in off-field, basically. So they're going to be your off-field damage dealers, but also your buffers and giving you some sort of support. Some balance characters have healing capabilities, others have more buffs or a shielder or something like that, but they basically do both. They are a sustain and a DPS all in one, and they have their own unique mechanics. Then you have your sustainer characters, which are your healers, your main buffers, your revival characters, like anything like that goes under the sustain category. Those are your 3 classes, and we have 5 different elements in the game. This is going to add to the combat experience of Black Beacon, and I'm looking forward to the different team compositions people find out and come up with, and the amount of fun that people are going to have when building their team comps. I think this is probably going to be the most complicated system of the game, figuring out what element you want to combine within your team, and also how to master those elements. Anyway, hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. Moving on. The next thing we're going to discuss is the skill tree and the talent tree and what each individual skill and attack does. You've got your basic attack, your skill 1, your skill 2, your passive, your ultimate skill, and your combo. And if you're wondering what the little dotted lines are at the bottom, like the little dot to dot things, depending on what ascension level your character is, level 20, 40, 60, 70, so on, that is going to basically tell you how far you can upgrade your skills based on your character level. Your basic attack speaks for itself. It's just your basic character attack or your charged attack. If you hold down the basic attack button, you have your first skill, which takes up a singular skill point. Different characters have different skill points. Florence, which is the skill tree that we're currently looking at right now, one of the 5-star characters in the game, has up to 6 skill points. She can consume 1 skill point for her skill 1, but her second skill requires 2 skill points. Now, the way the combo skill works is every single character has their own unique combo ability. Now, what happens is there is a bar, a unique bar within the combat system that fills up like a concerto gauge. Instead of it being just character specific though, it's universal. Once that bar fills up, depending on what character you want to use that certain combo skill on, you can either switch into another character and it will activate that combo skill, or a new button will pop up on your HUD. You will click it and it will activate that specific character's combo skill. You will use your basic attack and your skill 1 and your skill 2 in a certain sequence in order to get a certain attack animation with buffs, debuffs, extra damage, etc. Each character has their own variation of combos. Each character has their own unique way of playing. Passives speak for themselves. Each character has their own unique passive ability. Ultimate skills happen when you build energy. The more energy you build using your skills and your basic attacks and your perfect dodges is going to build your ultimate gauge, and then you will use your ultimate ability when it is available. The next thing we're going to be discussing here is the Ancient Mark system. The Ancient Mark system is essentially the Relic system, if you're familiar with the Hoyoverse games, or the Echo system, if you're familiar with Wuthering Waves. You obtain Ancient Marks by playing through the story or playing a specific endgame mode, and then once you've collected and accumulated enough Ancient Marks, you can place them down in a certain order to create a symbol. Now, you can either create your own pattern using the ancient marks you have accumulated and collected, or once you get to a certain part in the endgame mode, you can buy, purchase, and collect basically pre-builds, like a symbol that basically already has buffs and builds implemented into that specific symbol, which saves you from creating your own using your own ancient marks. Now, in this game, there is something called a fusion mechanic, and what that means is you can fuse 2 ancient marks together to get a better ancient mark, and that better ancient mark will have both of the main stats of the 2 previous ones that you fused together. For instance, if you have 2 ancient marks that have an elemental boost on one and an attack boost on the other, you can fuse those 2 together, and then when it gives you the one that you've created, it will have both of those stats on that new ancient mark that you yourself have created. It saves you having to constantly re-roll and re-roll and re-roll for the stats you want. Instead of that, there is a fusion mechanic, which I think is a much better system than the re-rolling mechanic we have in most other gachas today. Each individual mark you collect has its own stat, like an attack stat, or a defense stat, or a HP stat. If you wish to change one of your ancient mark stats from attack to defense, defense to speed, speed to HP, etc., you are going to place it in the re-engrave slot. Then you're going to use your golden coins, which is the in-game currency, to select one of the stats that you want to change it to, which I think is a much better system than what we have in other gachas, because I think it's a lot more free to play friendly. It doesn't require you to constantly re-roll for substats, and I believe this is going to be a very good and fun and easy system for you to grind for to create the best build possible for your characters. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing different builds and different blueprints and different symbols people come up with when this game releases later on in the year. Next thing I want to touch on is one of the many different game modes that the Black Beacon has, and that is the Tower of Babel mode. Now, any Generation 1 Gacha fans or Clash of Clans fans or Clash Royale fans, or those old games where you build your base and expand, they have an element of that within Black Beacon called the Tower of Babel mode. Now, what the Tower of Babel is you have to send your characters that you've collected on different expeditions and adventures. They're going to accumulate Babel points, and you're going to use those Babel points to upgrade your Tower of Babel to basically build it as high and as strong as possible. You're going to be able to trade these resources. You have to upgrade your field stations, your celestial orchid, your trade stations, your workshops, etc. to build the best Tower of Babel base possible. And what this is going to do is going to enable you to go on expeditions and adventures and do things faster, which is going to accumulate you materials, whether it's character essential materials and other materials, for you to play the game of Black Beacon more efficiently, which is something that I thought was pretty cute. A little game mode that I thought was pretty fun. Nothing amazing, but I just wanted to touch on that quickly because I thought that was a nice little touch they added to the game. Skins is going to be available within Black Beacon day one, and the way you're going to collect these skins and obtain these skins is by getting the character's affection level up. And the way you get their affection level up is simply just by using the character and also giving them gifts that you're going to be able to obtain via story or other game modes. And the more affection they have, the more rewards you are going to claim. You can get the premium currency, you can get their skins, you can unlock lore tomes, you can unlock more information about the character, voice lines, etc. And you're going to be able to collect the skins as simple as that. There is going to be a different series of skins at the moment. There is the Radiant series, which is basically just a color change, and there's also going to be a legendary series, which is going to be a premium skin, which is going to come later on. Endgame is something that comes with abundance in Black Beacon. When you complete the story and you collect the new character, if you want them, you are going to be craving for more content if you're enjoying your time playing the game. And this has an abundance of endgame modes. We have Echoes of the Pages, which essentially, if I can simplify it, it's Depths of Elusive Realm. Depths of Elusive Realm, or Simulated Universe. That is essentially what Echoes of the Pages is. And then we have the Multiverse of Time, which again, to simplify it, is Tower of Adversity. If you are familiar with those kind of game modes, you're going to be very familiar with the Multiverse of Time and the Echoes of the Pages. The main story of the game currently has 5 released playable chapters. 19 stages, 19 basically levels are within each chapter of the game. Now, the further along you progress in the game, you will then unlock the side stories, and the side stories are essentially your character companion quests. The more characters you meet within the main story, and the further you get in the main story, the more side quests slash character companion quests you will unlock as well. Then we have the EX Zone. The EX Zone contains character tutorials, the Head Librarian's Authority, and what the Head Librarian's Authority is, basically when you learn the mechanics of the game to complete and maximize your rewards within the Head Librarian's Authority, it's going to require you to, let's say you go into a stage within the Head Librarian's Authority, it's going to say complete within 3 minutes, but within those 3 minutes of completion you also need to parry an enemy's attack 20 times. Or there's another stage of the Head Librarian's Authority where it's perfect dodge 15 times, and if you can do that within the time frame, you complete the mission and you get the maximum amount of rewards. You then have the brute force mode, and the brute force mode is a point system where basically you go through multiple different floors fighting multiple different enemies, and depending on how good you fight, whether you use combo skills, ultimate skills, perfect dodges, etc., and basically how quick you complete these floors, you are going to get a high score, and based on your high score you're going to receive rewards. And last but certainly not least, we have the Echoes of the Past mode. Now, the further you get in the story, you will encounter different boss fights. When you come to the Echoes of the Past, depending on how many bosses you've defeated in the story, you can then basically fight them again for premium currency rewards or a weapon ascension, character ascension, etc. So there's plenty of endgame to go through here. We've got Echoes of the Pages, which is basically Simulated Universe. You've got the Multiverse mode, which is Towers of Adversity. And then we have modes like Head Librarian, Brute Force, or Echoes of the Past, which is going to give you even more content for you to sink your teeth into when this game launches later on this year. The next thing we're going to be discussing here is the combat of Black Beacon. Now, the combat of Black Beacon is very smooth, is very flashy, is very Punishing Grey Raven / Wuthering Waves, but considering that the developers of Black Beacon are ex-Kuro devs, I am not surprised that the combat looks so similar to those two games. The combat has different fighting buttons. You have your basic and charge attack, which is one single button. You have your dodge, you have your skill 1, you have your skill 2, you have your ultimate, and in the top right of the screen you will see a bar. Now when that bar fills, consider it like a concerto gauge. When that bar fills to the top, you will see a brand new button appear on your screen. Click that and you will go into the unbound state. Essentially what the unbound state is while you are there, any skill, whether it's skill 1 or skill 2, will not cost skill points. It will be completely free until the bar runs dry, which is a very unique system, and it's going to really abuse your character's power if they're built correctly. The ultimate moves obviously require energy to build up, and when the energy is maxed, you will be able to use your ultimate skill. The combat is very flashy, very fast paced. The dodging is actually quite difficult. The time window isn't exactly as easy as you would think. And overall, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's addicting, it's fun. And I believe, now this is not confirmed, but I've heard that there may be multiplayer for Black Beacon coming in the future as well. Don't quote me on that, that's just what I've heard. But the combat is definitely a very fun aspect of the game. The last thing we're going to be talking about here is, of course, the gacha system. We can't talk about a gacha game without talking about the gacha system the game has to offer. So the way Black Beacon's gacha system works is this. There is a standard banner, a limited banner, a weapon banner, and occasionally there will be an event banner. Now the event banner is the discounted banner with a specific 5-star you are guaranteed to get at the end of that banner. Then we have the standard banner, which is guaranteeing you one of the base roster 5-stars, but when you first log into the game, after your 30th pull on the standard banner, there is a 5-star selector for you waiting. Then you have the limited 5-star banner, where it is a 70 to 30% chance of getting the character, 70% chance you'll receive the character you want, 30% chance you will lose. And finally, we have the weapon banner, which is always going to be guaranteed. You can choose the weapon you want, and at the 50th pull, which is where pity is on the weapon system, you're going to be guaranteed that specific weapon. Now, there is a way to increase your odds even further when going for the character. After your 45th pull, every single pull you do after that is going to increase your odds of a 5-star by I think 0.1 or 0.2% chance. I don't know the exact amount, but I believe it's somewhere around there, which means it's going to eventually, of course, give you a higher chance to get an early 5-star. Now, if you do not get an early 5-star with these increased odds, by the time you get to your 70th pull, those bonus odds that you've accumulated from your 45th pull could stack onto your 70% chance, which could give you up to 80% or maybe even more on getting the brand new character. So you could turn your 70% chance into an 80% chance if you are very lucky, which I think is a very unique way of looking at it. There you have it, guys. This has been my full Black Beacon review based on the beta test of the game. If I was to rate each individual section of this game out of 10, story 9 out of 10. Absolutely stupid. It's stupidly good, and I can't wait for you guys to experience it. Combat 8 out of 10. Very fast paced, the animations are very good, and the combat itself is very easy and very smooth and very sort of friendly for new players. It's not too complicated. It's not as complicated as games like PGR, but it's a little bit more complicated than games like Wuthering Waves, and I'm looking forward to you guys experiencing that for yourselves. Character design, 9 out of 10. I think some of these characters look amazing. I love the design of the 4-stars. Some of the 4-stars look like 5-stars in this game, and the 5-stars look outrageous. Voice acting, 9 out of 10. Amazing voice acting. I think they did an outstanding job, and I'm looking forward to seeing again what you guys think and what other content creators think when this game releases. The gacha system has been so fair. The gacha system is so fair, and it is so friendly to free-to-play players. So the fact that you get a free 5-star selector The weapons are always guaranteed, and it's also a selector. The pity system is 70 to 30, and you can also increase your odds on your limited 5-star to up to 80% potentially. And I think the gear system and the upgrading system is very unique. And I think that itself deserves a score of an 8 out of 10. Gacha system, by the way, 9 out of 10. So overall, it's going to be an 8.5 to 9 out of 10 out of a game. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, hit that like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of Black Beacon. And yeah guys, take it easy.